You ever notice something kind of strange? We are absolutely obsessed with the generational wars, right? Boomers versus millennials, the whole saga with Gen Z. But in all that noise, there's this entire generation we just seem to forget. They're the invisible ones, the quiet bridge connecting two completely different worlds. This is the story of Gen X. And that generation, that's Generation X, born roughly between 1965 and 1980. You know who they are. They're your older coworkers who just get stuff done without any fuss. Or maybe they're your parents who can seem, oddly detached. And because of that, their whole psychology is maybe the most misunderstood of any generation alive today. So, what is the deal with them? What really makes this generation tick? And why does it feel like they're hiding in plain sight, just quietly holding everything together while the rest of us are making all the noise? In this explainer, we are going to peel back the layers on this quiet generation and find out what's really going on. To really get them, you have to picture this. It's, say, 1978. You're 8 years old. You get home from school and the house is completely empty. There's no smartphone to call anyone, no security camera on the door, no way for anyone to even check if you made it home okay. You just let yourself in, you make your own snack, you do your homework, and you just wait. This was the actual reality for millions of kids, and it became the bedrock of their entire worldview. Now, this unsupervised childhood wasn't just about learning how to be independent. No, for a whole generation, that empty house became a kind of psychological crucible. It forged a mindset that is so radically different from the generations that came before, and especially the ones that came after. And we're not talking about a small number here. By 1984, studies found that around 7 million kids were regularly home alone after school. That's a huge chunk of a generation learning a really fundamental lesson from way too young. You can't always count on someone being there for you. This whole experience created what psychologists call a high contingency environment. Fancy term, but it just means a world without a safety net. If you made a mistake, you had to deal with the consequences right then and there, all by yourself. And that hardwired their brains to think 3 steps ahead, to always anticipate the outcome in a way that can seem almost psychic to younger generations. This gap between the promise and the reality, this became the defining struggle of their youth. They were told one thing, but they saw something totally different with their own eyes. They were promised a stable family life, and then witnessed record-high divorce rates. They were told company loyalty pays off, and then they watched their parents get laid off after 20 years. This disconnect is absolutely crucial to understanding them. So it's really easy to look at all this and just call them cynical, but honestly, that's not the right word. What we see as pessimism is actually a super practical survival mechanism, one that was born from watching how things really worked. So what did they do? They developed a kind of emotional armor. They hope for the best, for sure, but there's a part of them that's always expecting the rug to get pulled out from under them. Not because they're negative people, but because, well, that's what kept happening to them. This mindset also totally explains the relationship with technology and privacy. I mean, they grew up in a world where privacy was just the default. If you made a mistake, it was private. Sure, maybe it was embarrassing, but it wasn't going viral. So this modern thing of broadcasting every thought and every meal online, to them, it doesn't feel liberating. It feels reckless. They learned a long time ago that sometimes safety comes from just not being known. Okay, so what happens when you take this psychology, this whole way of thinking, and you bring it into the workplace? Well, you get a powerful and really unique work ethic that most people just completely misunderstand. Their first jobs weren't about building a resume. They were a raw introduction to the real world. Delivering newspapers at 5 in the morning, bagging groceries, having to calculate change in your head. These kinds of experiences taught them what responsibility really means, in a way an internship just never could. And this shaped their professional code. They watched their parents get burned by corporate loyalty, so they decided to be loyal to their own competence instead. They respect skill, not a fancy title on a business card. See, they can't control if a company has layoffs, but they can control being so valuable that they're the last one to go. And if you're in charge but you haven't earned their respect, yeah, they have zero patience for that. And history just kept proving them right. I mean, imagine getting a tech degree right as the dot-com bubble burst in 2001, or finally buying your first house in 2007 just before the whole market collapsed. This wasn't just bad luck. It was a repeating pattern of economic trauma that hammered home one harsh lesson. Nothing is ever guaranteed. So when you start putting all these pieces together, you start to see their unique and absolutely critical role in history. They aren't invisible. There's something else entirely.
Think about this for a second. Before the internet, knowledge had a physical cost. You had to spend hours in a library digging through those little card catalogs just to find a single book. That whole effortful process of getting information, what psychologists call deeper encoding, it wired their brains for a totally different kind of problem solving. It relied on memory and critical thinking, not just a quick search.
And this is exactly why they are the bridge. They're the translators. They're the ones who can troubleshoot a Wi-Fi router with the exact same patience they once used to fix a tangled cassette tape. They navigate our crazy digital world with an analog intuition that is quickly becoming a lost art. Just let that sink in for a minute. They might be the last generation that truly knows what it's like to be bored, to just be alone with your thoughts, to figure out a problem without immediately reaching for Google. They were literally shaped by that moment in time when the old world was dying and the new one hadn't quite been born yet. And that's maybe the most Gen X thing of all. They are the bridge. And bridges don't get trophies or headlines. They're just there, quietly, reliably, doing the essential work of holding everything together and not expecting a single thing in return. They are the bridge between the world that was and the world that is. And as they start to retire, taking all that unique analog intuition and radical self-reliance with them, we really have to ask ourselves a serious question. What happens when that bridge is gone?